Hello, welcome to the second part or the second lecture on crew scheduling. In the first lecture, we have looked at an overview of crew scheduling, discussed the challenges in crew scheduling, the steps, the procedure, and in the second part of this particular lecture, we are going to look at certain other important aspects such as crew rostering. So, we have already completed up to crew pairing, but in this second session we are going to look at crew rostering, the day of operations or DOPS, how to handle the crew vacancies, and we will touch upon very briefly the mathematical tools, future trends, and then in the end I will give you a detailed bibliography of various websites, papers, documents and literature that anyone can read up to get more content information. So, if you have not watched the part 1 of this particular lecture, I would request you to stop watching and go back to watch the part 1 because it is the continuation of the first part. We start the second part by looking at crew rostering. In crew rostering, we are assigning specific crew members to the trips which have been created in crew pairing in the initial crew scheduling algorithm. Now, the crew rostering aims at arriving at a stable monthly roster for each crew member. This particular roster is also called as a line of flying for the crew member. So, each crew member gets a list of which flights they will fly in that one particular month. But the crew rostering also includes creation of a similar document for backup crew members to fill in when needed, and this is called as reserve lines. So, when you have line of flying and reserve lines, you are taken care of the rostering problem completely. But it may be easy to look at, but here is a graphic that shows the complexity of a very basic rostering process, where on one hand you have the crew members, on the other hand you have the rules, and there are various other considerations which play a role in bringing it together. Let us break it down for you slowly one by one. What are the inputs used in crew rostering? The inputs are the library of legal trips which have been already given to you by crew pairing. To understand what is meant by this and how it is obtained, please refer to the previous lecture, part 1 of this series. Then crew based data basically means location of the crew members and what is the availability of the staff. Then we look at the qualification matrix of the crew members, that is features about their experience and knowledge and qualification such as type rating. As I mentioned, each aircraft requires its own set of trained and current crew members. Not every crew member can fly every aircraft. Then there are seat positions. There is someone who is pilot in command, somebody who is the first officer. So, you cannot schedule a flight with 2 first officers, but you might schedule a flight with 2 PICs in which one of the junior, generally the junior PIC will act as a first officer. Then certain flights, they may require people with special skills like the ETOPS approval. ETOPS stands for Extended Range Twin Engine Operations, a topic which has been explained in detail in one of the lectures. So, if you do not know about ETOPS and its approval, or if you are curious to know, please look at that particular lecture. Then we also try to sometimes match the language skills with the abilities of the pilots or the crew members, especially the crew members, because they deal with the general public. So, when you operate flights to China or to France or other countries, it is always handy that the crew members know the language that the ATC uses. And when an airline is operating at a route where there are lots of people from India, for example, it will be good to have people in the crew who know Hindi. Or if you are operating a flight, let us say to Ahmedabad, then it will be good to also have additional crew members who can speak in Gujarati. Similarly, if you are operating to Jalandhar or Amritsar, Punjabi. Then we have to also keep in mind what are the training and the vacation schedules, because pilots and the flight attendants undergo continuous training. They have their own vacations which are actually mandatory. And then the interesting aspect is that every crew member has a contract with the airline, and these contracts are arrived at with the association of the unions, and the unions, they use collective bargaining agreements, and they come up with some kind of norms and rules which are then to be followed by the crew rostering people, so that they do not break these agreements. Now, as you must have already imagined, there are lots of constraints when you go for crew rostering. You can broadly classify them under two subheadings: hard constraints, which definitely have to be met, and soft constraints, which are desirable. If you meet them, it is good. So, what are the hard constraints? Each crew member should start and end at their base, right? Then they should be qualified to fly that instrument or that aircraft, and they should be current on that. Sometimes there are currency requirements. After so many hours, you need to be retrained. So, I may know how to fly a particular aircraft, I may have a license or approval or type rating on one aircraft, but am I current? Then you have to look at the flight duty time limitations or rest rules, about which I have spoken in the previous lecture. Then every crew member needs to have trainings and medicals. Medicals are very important. Crew members undergo an annual medical checkup, and if there is a deficiency, they cannot be operated, right? Plus, generally during the negotiations, there are certain protected days for each crew member which are not to be touched. It can be assumed that they are not available during that period. These could be certain days of the year during which the pilot is not available for duty because they take an annual vacation, or because they have some other commitments during that time. These are the hard constraints. When you do the rostering, these constraints have to be met, no choice. But then you have certain soft constraints. Some pilots would request, or crew member would request, to avoid flying on weekends. Some of them would like to prefer shorter trips, and if it is possible, we definitely can meet these constraints. Many of them would say that they would like to avoid red-eye flights. Many of them would say that they have some preferred destinations because they have some relatives or friends there with whom they want to bond or catch up. And sometimes there are friends among crew members, they gel very well with each other, so they sometimes indicate that I would like to fly with that particular crew member if possible. Now, to the extent possible, the soft constraints are incorporated, but hard constraints, there is no choice. Soft constraints as and when possible. So, what is the decision logic in rostering? There are hard rules such as legality, such as qualifications, rest limits and annual hours. Then there are soft rules. So, first you fulfill all the hard rules, then you look at the soft rules. After that you look at the seniority, because senior pilots generally they are able to get their priorities for their choices before the junior pilots. And after that you have the final roster. That final roster contains information which ensures that all the flights are covered, none of the rules or the hard constraints are broken, and as far as possible the soft rules and the choices of seniority are honored. But once in a while you may not be able to incorporate seniority, you may not be able to incorporate the soft rules. So, what is the output of rostering? The final results are that you have a monthly lines for each crew member. Then the reserve crew schedule is there for backup. So, the reserve crew members already know that they are on reserve. They will not plan any activity or they will not be away. They will be available at short notice, maybe a couple of hours, 3 hours, they should be able to come. You will come up with a legal and stable plan with minimal post-publishing changes. There are some good practices in rostering. First is, whenever you update, you must run the legal checks to ensure that by mistake you have not come up with that illegal roster. Then you have to track fairness over the months. It shouldn't happen that one particular crew member is getting priority or getting their soft requirements met every time. You can't be partial because that leads a very bad taste. Here is an example of a desirable crew rostering. A crew member is based in New York, first officer, and the flight is by Airbus A320. This person prefers 2-day trips and would not like to have red-eye flights as far as possible. So, this is one schedule which has been assigned, the rostering has been assigned. So, day 1 the pilot takes off from JFK, goes to Chicago, from there to Denver, and then take the night rest. So, no red-eye flights. And next day morning, start from Denver, Chicago, back to the base. So, it is a 2-day schedule, no red-eye flights, and returning back to the base. So, this particular roster matches the qualifications, it meets the rest rules, it honors the preferences. So, this is the ideal situation, this is the perfect case, because we have found a system, the system or the optimization algorithm has found a legal 2-day pairing that fits the company's rules and also meets the crew's personal preferences. Everybody is happy, but this may not happen every time. Now, many people get confused between pairing and rostering. Crew pairing and crew rostering, there are two different things. Crew pairing basically is not to do with the human beings, it's to do with the aircraft. You are designing a trip, okay? But in rostering, you are assigning people to these trips. So, in pairing, we create flight sequences A to B, B to C, C to D, D to A. We are ensuring that the pairing is legally valid, and normally it is done using maths and optimization, and this is management friendly, which means the airline likes it because it is the least cost solution or it does not have many overheads. In the rostering, you assign people to pairing. So, when you assign people to pairing, as far as possible you try to meet their preferences like weekend off or no red-eye flights, but as far as possible. This is the humane and fair allocation, and this can be considered to be crew friendly. So, pairing is essentially from the management side, rostering is from the crew side. If you can do a good job in both management and the crew are happy, that is the best situation. And remember, pairing is something that leads to rostering in the following sequence. In pairing, you decide the flight legs, so you schedule all the flights. From there, you can do crew pairing, that means you create legal flight sequences. From there, we start the rostering, which is assigning crew members to the pairings, and finally, we have the crew schedule, which is who flies on which flight at what time, from where to where. Now, things do not go as per plans, and there are lots and lots of unforeseen delays and problems. So, there is something called as day of operations center or DOPS. DOPS, the only job of DOPS is keep the schedule running no matter what happens. The role of DOPS is to handle the real life issues in, for example, there could be, the aim could be to ensure that the flights keep operating despite problems because of weather, because of ATC delays, because of any maintenance issues, because of absence of crew members or someone does not turn up. You should be able to reassign or recrew the flights legally when disruptions occur, so that the show goes on. You need to minimize the ripple effect when you do the solution, because you do not want delays to cause a chain of cancellations. And you also want to protect the flight bank structure. You want the flights to continue in the banks that they do, especially at hubs and spokes. So, the sequence of arrival and departure through hubs should not be very much affected. Now, one of the useful tools in DOPS is crew vacancy handling. What to do when there is a crew vacancy? So, why does crew vacancy arise? Because of sickness of the crew members, because they want to leave for some reason to take care of some urgent family matter, they have to go for training, or sometimes their visa has expired and therefore they cannot travel. There could be many reasons, okay? But some vacancy has arisen. Now, there are some strategies to handle the vacancy. Generally, we use 4 different strategies. The first one is called as using standby or reserve crew. The next one is crew swapping. The third is called as deadheading or repositioning, and the fourth one is called as part-time or contract crew. Let us look at all of these. So, airport standby is a strategy in which we can get immediate replacement of a crew member from the standby crew who are on a short call away or they are at the airport itself. Then you have short call reserves. These are people or crew members who are told to be available for a possible requirement at a very short notice, generally a couple of hours or 3 hours. They are either at the airport or nearby. They will come immediately and take care of the duty in case there is a problem. Then you can also go for swapping or exchanging. So, one crew member who is legally allowed to go on that particular aircraft on that particular route just swaps with somebody else so that we can take care. So, this can happen, for example, if there is one crew member who has got a limited FDTL remaining. Okay, there is, let us say, 4 hours remaining, but the flight is requiring 5 hours. There is another crew member who has 6 hours remaining because they have done a shorter flight. So, you just swap and you continue. And then the last but not the least, the most undesirable but sometimes unavoidable method is to call as deadheading a crew, which means you fly a replacement crew from some other city. Many a times as passengers we observe that there are certain crew members sitting as passengers. Generally these are people who are either going back home at the end of their journey of the day, or they may be deadheading. They have come from Indore to Mumbai so that they can take a flight or go with the flight from Mumbai to Delhi because of crew shortage. So, there is a particular sequence followed or there is a particular priority. Basically, we need to choose the fastest and the least cost option, but it should be legal, and legal not only just for this flight and today, legal so that it does not harm tomorrow's operation. You cannot give a solution where today you are okay, but tomorrow there will be a problem. Okay. So, for example, if in New York JFK the first officer reports sick, then what do? First thing we do is we check for a standby crew available at JFK itself. If not available, then we look for reserve crew. Are they available in JFK or are they available in Newark, which is nearby, or maybe anywhere in the New York City area, so that they can come very quickly. If not possible, then we look for a swap. Is there some other crew member available who can exchange their duty or take care of this? If not, then you have no option but to deadhead a crew member from any nearby airport. So, we go normally in this sequence. The first choice is standby crew, if not reserve crew, if not swapping, if not then deadheading. There are some tools and strategies which are used by DOPS to ensure that they can solve a problem. I have already mentioned them, I will just repeat here. First is quick replacement by standby or reserve crew, then swap between crew members to keep the flights moving, then deadheading, flying crew to position where they are needed. Sometimes the DOPS can do a micro departure delay. Many a times you hear that flight is delayed by 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Generally speaking, if you delay a flight more than 15 minutes, you need to report it. So, up to 15 minutes delay may not be reported. So, therefore, many DOPS they will do micro retiming, a short delay to manage weather or slot delays, and sometimes they may do tactical cancellations. They would cancel a flight so that the remaining network is saved. Okay. So, passengers of one particular flight will be upset because the flight is cancelled, but they could be reassigned to the later flight, they could be given some incentives, or you say, okay, let me bear the issues of this flight, but because of that I have these crew members available, the next flights will continue. So, what are the considerations when you choose a fix? Is this legal for this flight and the next few legs? How does it affect the hub waves or bank timings? Is this particular solution going to complicate the things further? Then we do not do it. Sometimes you need to go for accommodating people and crew in the hotels, give them some overtime. If their FDTL is not exceeded, but their duty time is over, you have to probably give them some overtime or deadhead the crew. Then for the passengers, what are the options for rebooking? Can we put them on some other flight by some other airline or our own flight a bit later with some compensation? Then we also look at how many reserves are available, because if you are giving a solution to a problem, you still need to have some reserves available for the next problem that may come. For example, if it's a bad weather which is causing a problem, and if it is a long term bad weather, you cannot put all your resources right now. You have to keep in mind that there may be other problems. Now, when the DOPS takes a decision, they have to communicate the decision to various people in a sequence. First thing they do is they inform the crew members with the new reporting times, or if they have to be put into a hotel, the information. Then they inform all the stations and the flight dispatch department about the changes that have been done. Then they update the passengers on the change in the gate or change in the timings of the flight. Here is an example. Let us say Boston Airport, which is notorious during winter for problems in icing. There is a delay in de-icing because the machine broke down or because there was a problem. So now if there is a delay, the FDTL of the current crew is exceeded, so they cannot fly anymore, so new crew takes over. So these crew members who are taking over, they will receive, they must be standby crew, or they may be from nearby places, or maybe dead-headed, they will receive updates on their apps. Then the dispatch will be informed to adjust the flight plans, and all the passengers, they also get real-time updates through apps or through the airline website. So this is the sequence of communication in DAPS. So here is how crew vacancies are handled. The moment a vacancy occurs, you first decide, is it short term or is it long term? If it is short term, less than 30 days, there is a different sequence followed. If it is long term, then you need a different kind of planning. If it is short term, then you make the offer to senior qualified agent. Okay, they should be in the same work group as far as possible. If not available, you assign some junior qualified agent who is in the same work group. But if it is a long term need, then you offer to a senior qualified agent, and then if it is still open, then temporary upgrade, etc. And finally, you cover the vacancy of the due segments. Now, there is also something called as a vacancy bidding system, or VBS. A vacancy has arisen. All the crew members in that company will get on their phones and information that there is a vacancy. Hey, there is a vacancy, would you like to fill it up? So the crew members, they bid for any open shifts or pairings which are available. They bid based on their own preferences and their availability. Now, the allocation sequence is allocate to the senior-most person, or first come first serve, or look at the preferences given by the various crew members. The idea is to ensure fairness and transparency, and this is the sequence. So there is an open pairing, that means there is one vacancy which has arisen. Everybody is informed, they all bid. So when they bid, they say, okay, I will take so much, or I will take this facility in return, I will take 1 day off, or I will fly more hours or less hours. There are various kinds of bids. So then the system, it looks at seniority and looks at the first come first serve, and then gives a roster update. Now this may appear to you as an air traffic control center, it looks like one, but actually this is the airline DOPS washroom. So they are constantly getting updates from their crew members. They are getting inboard flight arrival times versus minimum connection time. So flights are getting delayed, and they know that the connection will have minimum so much hours. So if they are getting delayed, they will try to adjust. Then slot delays or de-icing queues during bad weather, so they keep monitoring what is happening. They are constantly on the alert for any crew check-in or sick call alerts from the crew members. Then they also keep a track of how many duty hours are remaining for each crew members, because when they exceed the crew hours, duty hours, you can't use them. They have to go for mandatory rest. Okay. And then they also keep a track of the reserve crew members available by base, that is which city they are from and the aircraft type. So it's a 24/7 constantly monitored station by a typical large airline. Now what is the operational loop of the DOPS? You look at the problems and detect them. You check the legalities whenever there is a problem, FDTL and rest times. You repair or re-roster as soon as possible, and then you notify the crew, the dispatch and the passengers. So there is a small case study. So many flights get cancelled because of bad weather. This is one example. But a few years ago, 2020, there was a snowstorm, 2019 I think, snowstorm. In Delta Airlines was one of the airlines that had a massive problem because more than 200 crew members could not come because they could not take their journey from their residence to the airport, bad weather. So, the vacancy based system was activated, people bid for it, but there was still a loss of $20 million to the airline. So, the lesson that they learned is that we should do a predictive planning. Now, when you activate the VBS, 70% flights were saved, but still it has a lot of financial implications in the cancellation duties. So, you were able to recover 70% flights because of the VBS, but still there was a huge financial price to be paid. Then sometimes there are irregular operations, IROPS, which have to be handled. This is the most challenging aspect of airline operations. Bad weather is a big reason, like thunderstorms, snow, hail, fog. There could be delays because of the air traffic control, congestion in the airspace, congestion at the airport, runway could be unavailable, or there could be an equipment malfunction. Then there could be maintenance problems. For example, you may have an engine malfunction or you may have a flat tire. All of these are leading to complications and irregular operations. In many of these situations, crew availability is immediately hampered. So, crew scheduling is not a very simple thing, okay? It is technically an NP hard problem. Now, by NP hard problem, what we mean is that it is a non-polynomial problem. What is a polynomial problem? It is an easy problem. It can be solved with within a finite time with computations. Then you have NP. Now, NP could be NP complete, NP hard. So, this is in the level of complexity. Now, crew scheduling is an NP hard problem because it is an extremely complex problem. There are several hundreds and thousands of combinations which are possible. Sometimes it goes into millions of combinations possible, right. Now, even the fastest computer available with the airline cannot check them all and decide. So, what we do is we use mathematical models to come up with the best possible solution within the time available, because you cannot say that we will do computations for the next 3 days and then give the solution. You have to decide within the next 3 hours, let us say, or 4 hours. So, what is the best solution in the limited time available? That is done using mathematical models. Mostly in scheduling we use linear programming, of course it is an approximation. We may use integer programming like go, no go, or you may use mixed integer linear programming. Some are integer, some are linear. There is also one method called column generation, which quickly tells you which particular crew pairing and crew scheduling is possible or not. It may not be perfect, but it is fast. Then many airlines, they use heuristics, rules and thumb rules which are based on past experience and based on trends and practices. Then modern tools like AI and ML are being used in arriving at scheduling. So, what is there in the future? The predictive analytics using AI and ML and other tools is going to be very handy. There are mobile crew apps available now where the crew members get information like the vacancy bidding system on their mobile phones. Much of the data in airline operations and IT is secure, so you can use blockchain for those records. And there is a trend nowadays to minimize deadheading, because deadheading means flying a crew member from place A to the place where he or she is required. It is actually a waste and you are burning a lot of fuel. You are actually coming up with a carbon footprint increase. So, the trend is to go for green scheduling, that is to minimize deadheading. So, in conclusion, crew scheduling is a complex problem. It is an NP hard problem where you need to have a delicate balance between S, C and F. What is S, C and F? Safety, cost and fairness. You have to be safe, all of the things have to be legal and without any exception, but it should not be very expensive and it should also be fair to all the crew members and to the passengers. It requires math, it requires IT tools and also it requires human judgment, because the crew rostering is there could be a legally pair given by an algorithm, but it may not be fair or it may not be humanly possible. So, judgment has to be used. The future is driven by AI ML driven solutions and sustainable solutions. Now with that I would like to end, but before I go I would like you to have a look at some important bibliography. If you want to delve deeper in this complex subject of crew scheduling, you should know where to look for information. So this is just a compilation of information. On the topic of operations research applied to airline crew scheduling, these are some of the very path breaking and important papers, and I would recommend you to go through them. Some are quite old, but some of them are also very relevant even today. Then if you want to look at airline IT systems, there are many interesting documents available online from Jeppesen, crew management solutions, these are professional solutions available from Sabre, from Jeppesen. Then if you want to get an idea about regulatory frameworks and fatigue rules, you need to look at the regulatory bodies and their documents. For example, in India we have DGCAs. There was a recent controversy in DGCA. The DGCA has proposed to increase the FDTL of pilots from 10 hours to 10.5 hours, and there is something called as a duty time limitations. One is a flight duty limitation, the other is duty time limitation. They have increased that from I think 12 to 13 hours. Now many pilot unions are objecting, they are saying that this can affect the safety. Now this particular FDTL was for Boeing 787 aircraft. Now increasing half an hour of duty might be very useful for some airlines, because that will allow them to offer a particular route with less crew members or without the need for replacement crew. But the pilot unions feel that this can jeopardize the safety of operations. So it is a delicate balance. They are putting pressure on the DGCA to revoke that rule, and we will know in near future whether the rule continues or the rule is revoked. Similarly, there are some very good reports and documents available to understand the economic aspects of airline and the cost. If you want to delve into optimization, AI and math models for scheduling, for example, I mentioned column generation as one method. Similarly, other tools in AI, please have a look at these papers. Some of them are very recent. And if you want to look at human factors, fatigue and psychology aspects related to scheduling, related to operations, these are some of the resources available to you. And I mentioned about a case study of Delta Airlines. There are reports available for that particular case study. If you want to study a particular example of how the operations were affected, this is reported widely in these online news portals as well as magazines. And finally, some information regarding the future trends, AI, blockchain, green scheduling is available through these documents. Thank you very much for your attention.